Well, good afternoon and welcome to Smith County and this press conference that's going on. My name is Bill Wayburn. I'm the Tarrant County Sheriff. And really, you know, after the last several years, life has been tough on this side of the badge from a lot of perspectives where law enforcement has really been hit hard on several occasions. But one of those hits is the constant threat from the south of the border of the cartel and the plethora of drugs that came up. Well, back in 17, we formed a great group called the North Texas Criminal Interdiction Unit. And this interdiction unit had a goal of all of North Texas of pursuing and capturing bad guys and seizing dope. And what you're about to hear from, you're going to hear from the sheriffs here today, is that I refer to it as like a Hollywood movie. There's going to be excitement, there's going to be rescue, there's going to be victory, and there's going to be danger. All of those things really do play a role in the story that we're about to share with you. And I'd like to first introduce some of the sheriffs that are here today. Of course, we got Sheriff Jim Skinner from Collin County. We got Sheriff Larry Smith from Smith County. And here representing Lane Akins from Wise County is Craig Johnson to my right. There are several sheriffs that couldn't be here today, but we have Tom Watts from Grayson County that's a part of this, is Terry Jones from Hunt County, that is a part of this, Terry Garrett from Rockwall County. Lane Atkins, as already said, he couldn't be here today. But Sheriff Russ Officer from Parker County, and all of these guys came together. And what we did is that for the very first time in history, sheriffs came together to have an interdiction team, number one. Number two is we had obstacles that were in our way, and one of those obstacles was Texas state law, because we couldn't go on beyond our continuous counties to help anybody. So we literally had to change law. And I want you to know that both Sheriff Smith and Sheriff Skinner were at the tip of the spear in changing law for the first time in Texas in 100 years that made it our ability to cooperate with each other beyond our continuous county lines. And it's been an incredibly successful adventure. Now, you're going to hear from some folks in just a minute, and again, they're going to fill in the squares of what all we have done over the last 7 years. And I think you're going to find that the statistics are incredible, but more importantly, the victories that law enforcement has had because of the cooperation between the departments. It's been an incredible ride, and it's going to continue that way, but we wanted to pause for a moment, and we wanted to celebrate what we have accomplished. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sheriff Jim Skinner from Collin County.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'm Jim Skinner from Collin County. It's an honor and a privilege to be here in Smith County with two of the greatest sheriffs in the state of Texas. I want to go through and give you some historical background and let you know how NTX CIU was created for just a moment. Back in 2017 when I was elected, you know, one of the concerns that I had being in a county that has a lot of municipal police departments was what's the biggest impact that I could have as a sheriff? And as a sheriff, I have jurisdiction over long stretches of roadway. And as all of you know, US 75 runs through the heart of Collin County from the south to the north. We know that the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is what we call a hub where the Mexican drug cartels bring drugs into the United States. They come to Dallas, they repackage them for national distribution, and then they head out in every direction to all the major cities in the north and the east, along the eastern seaboard, and what have you. So we created an interdiction deputy in my county, and we started working US 75. And after some successes, I went to the sheriff north of me, Sheriff Tom Watt in Grayson County. And I got with Sheriff Watt and I said, look, why don't we enter into an agreement and let's let our deputies work with one another, or let my deputy work in your county and I'll let your deputy work in my county. And let's see if we can have a force multiplier to see what we can do. And we had great results. And as a result of that, we sat down and said, look, we need to go to the other sheriffs and see what we can do from the standpoint of creating an umbrella, if you will, across North Texas. But we were restricted by the law because then the law was such that we could only work with another sheriff in a contiguous county. So myself and Sheriff Smith and Sheriff Wayburn worked with the Texas legislature, and a bill was passed that allows sheriffs to work with another sheriff anywhere in the state of Texas. And as a result, we brought in the other sheriffs from Parker, Wise, Tarrant, Rockwall, Hunt counties, and Smith counties, which were all on major trafficking corridors, and we brought this together. All of these deputies are very specially trained. They all wear the very identical uniform. They all drive cars that look very much alike, but it doesn't have the county name on it, so it doesn't confuse people, you know, when they're working in another county. And these guys hit the road. So let's talk about the problem. In Collin County, since 2019, we've had a 1,320% increase in the number of fentanyl-related deaths in Collin County. We know that our efforts, though, are working, and we know that based on statistics. If in Collin County, for instance, between 2022 and 2023, if you take those 2 years, in 2023 we had a 21% decrease in the number of fentanyl deaths. But in the same year, we had a 2,000% increase in the number of fentanyl seizures. So if you correlate the two, we know that the efforts of these brave deputies that work with the NTX CIU unit is really having a major impact. Now, I want to talk for a second about, the root cause. The cause are the Mexican drug cartels. And right now, the situation on our southern border is absolutely untenable. We have a federal government where we have an administration that's abdicated its authority completely. Is not doing what they should do and what the Constitution dictates they should do about protecting our southern border. Consequently, we have a governor who's done everything that he can to try to protect Texans. But in spite of doing the things that he needs to do to try to protect the border and keep people from entering into the state of Texas illegally, we have people cutting the razor wire and then lawsuits filed, and it goes to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court vacates a judgment, an injunction, and these types of things, so that's complicated as well. So on the local level, from our standpoint, it's really, it leaves it to us to try to do those things that we can to combat the cartels. Because make no mistake, the Sinaloan and the Jalisco New Generation cartels are responsible for 95% of the death and destruction that flows into the United States. We've had hundreds of thousands of Americans killed from fatal fentanyl poisonings just over the last couple of years. The Mexican drug cartels are responsible for 100% of the human trafficking that comes across the border into the United States, both for sex purposes and for labor. And as insidious as it is, they're also responsible for 100% of the debt bondage that's taking place. And that's nothing less than modern day slavery, right here in the United States. Because every person that comes to that border is charged a fee to come into the United States. And that fee right now is about $8,000 a person. Well, you've seen the television. You've seen that many of these people that are traveling here with their families and children, they don't have $8,000. So they're processed. And all of their information and background, all their biographical data is collected by the cartels, stored in computers, where they come from and where they're going, who they're meeting, who their family is in the United States, and then they're allowed into the United States. Actually, they're channeled in the United States by the cartels. And when they get here, they go to their destination, but they still owe the cartels. And if they don't pay that money, there are consequences, deadly consequences. That debt bondage is horrific. So we have millions of people in the United States, migrants that have flowed into the United States, they're in debt to the U.S.-Mexican drug cartels. It's crazy. So I'm proud of NTX CIU. We have recovered and seized an enormous amount of drugs. We've given you the information on it. Sheriff Waburn's going to talk about the statistics here in just a minute. But in addition to almost $7 million in bulk currency that the cartels had secreted in vehicles flowing south going into Mexico, we've recovered automatic weapons, ammunition as well, and we've recovered an enormous amount, many tons of drugs coming north and flowing into our communities. This is not done without an enormous amount of bravery by these deputies. So you know that when these deputies stop somebody, they're stopping somebody that's, it's all on the table. And I want to show you an example of that. This was the body armor worn by my deputy who made a traffic stop on Interstate 30 along with Rockwall County deputies assigned to the NTX CIU on the 1st of November. When he got out of the car and approached the car, the suspect in the car opened fire. He had 14 kilos of cocaine in the car. He opened fire on my deputy and he struck him in the chest, and his body armor stopped the round, struck him in the hand, and then a round as well went through his holster, the front of his holster. He shot at my deputy 11 times. And in that shootout, the suspect lost his life. My point being is that these men put it all on the line to protect the citizens that they serve. I'm extremely proud of them, and we're here today because we want you to also understand the risk that these people take. It's an honor for me as the sheriff of Collin County to be associated with such men and fine sheriffs as I am, and I'm proud of them all. Thank you.
Well, you've heard that this is a great organization. You've just heard some of the danger that has been involved and some of the successes that we've had. But you're going to hear next from your very own Sheriff Larry Smith. But before he comes up here, I want to tell you that Larry Smith has a reputation not only across the state of Texas, but he has a reputation across the United States. He's been a leader in our capitals, both in the state and the United States. His influence has caused an effect of the quality of life for the citizens of not only Smith County, but Tarrant County, Collin County, and Texas. And we couldn't be more proud to serve with him. He is one of the great sheriffs that you see and hear about, a good, honest lawman that gets the job done.
Sheriff Wayburn, I'm going to owe you for a while, looks like. Wasn't expecting that. But I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple things that hadn't been mentioned in detail yet. And one is the porous borders of the United States with Mexico is where all of the methamphetamine, cocaine, marijuana, or much of the marijuana is coming from. Back when I'm going to tell my age a little bit here. Back when I started with the Drug Enforcement Administration, and I can't even remember the year, 1987, the drugs were coming from Bogota, Colombia to Florida. That changed and it started going through the porous borders of Mexico. What also changed is the methamphetamine was clandestinely manufactured here in the United States because they were able to get the precursor chemicals to do so. And we had been after the federal government to control those precursor chemicals, in which they finally did, but really it had an unintended consequence. Texas used to be, when it was clandestinely manufactured, Texas was number 3 in the nation for the output of methamphetamine, clandestine methamphetamine. But what happened is the federal government controlled the precursor chemicals where they could not come through the United States from China. So they came from China to Mexico. That's the unintended consequence. Then what was born out of that is the clandestine methamphetamine manufacturer is unabatedly manufactured in Mexico, where who knows, probably parts of the federal government are involved in it. But the purity level goes up and the danger goes up. Back when I first started, right about the time I started with the Drug Enforcement Administration in '87, is when Kiki Camareno was killed in Guadalajara, Mexico. He was an undercover DEA agent. And things haven't changed since then. They've gotten more dangerous than they've ever been. They're dangerous for our sheriffs on the border. I testify quite frequently in the House and the Senate of the state with our border sheriffs. We have a problem. We have a problem that has to be addressed and has to be addressed immediately. It cannot be waiting for us to address it later. Some of you that know me have no doubt I said what I'm about to tell you. I said when I was testifying in the Senate, I believe it was. No, it was the House. I'd heard an argument where they were just berating our border sheriffs, and I got madder and madder and madder before I got up there to testify. And the first words out of my mouth is, when are we going to stop being Democrats or Republicans and start being Americans again? That's what's got to happen in this country. We got to start working together, or our youth are going to continue dying from the illicit manufacture and transportation of fentanyl And it's all over the United States. There's not one state that's exempt from fentanyl deaths anywhere. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sheriff Wayburn. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Smith. As Sheriff Smith said there, is that, the collaboration of this unit is historical. The first time it's happened in the United States, first time it's happened in Texas, and these guys were the leaders of it. In making that happen, we demonstrate on how to have that collaboration that Sheriff Smith just talked about and the successes that it had. We don't have Sheriff Ankins here today, but we have Chief Johnson, his senior exec. So at this time, we're going to ask him to come forward. He's got a few things for you.
Thank you, Sheriff Wayburn. The uniqueness of this unit is the out-of-box nature of the strategic planning, the operation, and as a result, its effectiveness. As we talk about trafficking patterns of narcotics coming in through Arizona, through our porous southern border, to the east, up to the north, even from Northern California and Oregon and Washington State, to the east and to the south, those are trafficking patterns not only for narcotics, but also victims of sex trafficking and human smuggling for labor purposes. And those are the modern day slaves that Sheriff Skinner was talking about. That's serious stuff. Those are things that we have all encountered in our counties, Wise County being no different. The uniqueness of this organization and what we have been able to achieve together only leaves a future that's bright because of what we have learned and what we have teamed up together to teach other sheriffs across the state and also across the nation. Is together we can do much more than we can do individually, as great as our counties are and as wonderful as our people are. When you combine those forces together, we see the challenges ahead of us, not only the narcotics and the trafficking, but legislatively what we need to do to strengthen the position of law enforcement. We see what we need to do to help improve the status of our mental health system in our state and in our nation. An unintended consequence of all this drug trafficking is mental health issues have just soared. The shortage of mental health beds in the state is pitiful. What this has done, the mental health issues, is turned the county jails into typically the largest mental health facilities that we have. That's a job that a status that they never were intended to have, staffed by people who, even trained as best they can, are not psychiatrists and psychologists. The mission ahead is multifaceted. That's why this unit and others that I'm sure will come online like it throughout the state, throughout the nation, we have a lot of work ahead for us. These sheriffs, our individual agencies, have already worked with our legislators in the state, in Austin, and also in Washington, D.C., to accomplish the needs to allow us to better serve our citizens. Whether it be Smith County, Collin County, Tarrant County, or Wise County, we function better together and we make a bigger difference together than we can individually.
Thank you, Chief. Is just going over some of those victories real quick that we have had, as you heard earlier. Nearly $70 million worth of drugs taken off the street. Over 500 arrests that have been made. And in that drugs, I would like to mention this, there was 103 pounds of pure fentanyl. That's enough to take 24 million lives. 24 million lives off the road. And this unit did that. But also heroin was used. Of course, methamphetamine is still big, but here's some other things. We had 33 high-profile fugitives that this unit took off the road, 119 stolen cars, and 64 automatic weapons, and nearly $8 million in bad cash. But also, even more importantly than all that, 3 abducted children. Any unit in the United States I'd put them up against in recovering abducted children. And this unit did that. They stayed ready to go. And I would say from this perspective is that also want to make it very clear. Texas sheriffs in this unit know that the Mexican cartel is public enemy number one. And we want the cartel to know if they take on our people, they see what the results will be in that last shooting. We will win this war. We will not rest until the cartel is out of business. And that is the commitment of your Texas sheriffs and these Texas sheriffs that are sitting here before you today. And we just are not going to put up with it. And we hope that the U.S. administration comes along with it, and we believe our governor is doing everything he possibly can. And I would like to add, while we operate, our federal partners locally have been great partners, and so has DPS. But with these things, we believe it's time to pause and just celebrate. We've seen fentanyl poisonings go down slightly, and we've seen fentanyl on the street go down slightly. Those are victories, and we're going to keep trying to achieve those victories as we move forward. Thank you all for being here, and we are open for questions.
Sheriff Whitworth, considering the success of what you guys have put together here and being now that legally the legislator gave you guys the power to do this, have you seen other units form across the state between different counties?
We have been, in fact, Sheriff Skinner has taken that lead, and we have been across the United States teaching what we have done here, helping them roadmap how to do it elsewhere. And I think that you're going to see other units very similar to this in the near future.
Yeah, it's one of the things, we've had sheriffs that have noted what we've done, and so they've requested that we come into their jurisdiction. So up in the Panhandle, down along the Gulf Coast, out in West Texas, and a number of other places, we've allowed our deputies to team up, go down to embed with their deputies from several different counties to teach them how this is done. And so we know that there is an effort underway here in Texas for other groups of sheriffs to try to do the very same thing. We've sent deputies as far as Idaho, across the United States, from sheriffs who, noticed what we've done here in North Texas, and they've requested our assistance, and so we've done the same for them. And in all of these cases, what we've done is, instead of using taxpayer dollars to do it, what we've done is we use those proceeds that when we seize bulk cash, it's a federal case, obviously, because of the way the laws are done. It's more efficient to do that either through DEA or HSI. And we put in for a civil asset forfeiture on those large amounts of bulk cash. And then when those are distributed evenly among the 8 sheriff's offices that work in this unit. So we've pulled that money together in order to send these deputies to other jurisdictions to pay for it rather than using our taxpayer dollars.
To create this unit sort of begin, and did y'all take the model from somewhere else, or where did y'all come up with the idea?
It came between the 2 ears of Jim Skinner. and it was his idea. He's the one that came up with it, and the rest of these sheriffs just jumped on and made it happen. And I can't overemphasize, and Sheriff Smith was right there with us, and is overturning Texas law is not an easy fit. And we had that obstacle in front of us, and there were several laws that we got changed, and that was the first time in 100 years that sheriffs have gotten the laws changed to make it happen. But we didn't take no for an answer.
That's a fact.
And when we talk about the work itself, kind of if you could just explain to us how it works. As you have these specific deputies who work through different counties, is it mostly stationing along well-traveled corridors and looking for those signs? Are there kind of ongoing investigations?
I'm going to let Sheriff Skinner probably answer that, but we're very careful also. We've stopped and paused here, but I want you to know that we've also been very careful about our methodologies.
Yeah, over the years, on purpose, if we make a seizure of 1,000 pounds of methamphetamines, we don't splash it on the front page of the newspaper. And the reason we don't do that is operational security, correct? I mean, if you think about it, we don't want to teach the cartel how to avoid being captured, and this is the reason that we don't talk about that. I will say this, these deputies are, they are a type of person who are unbelievably hyper vigilant about what they observe. And there are certain things that occur on the highways that we travel every day that you and I take for granted. But these deputies don't miss those cues and those things that they see. I'll leave it at that because, what we don't want to do is to educate our adversaries. It does bear mentioning that this unit also does work in a collective fashion at the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. Okay, we're not going to get into exactly what happens there, but as you might imagine, Imagine the volume of aircraft that are flying all over this country. And recognizing that, we understand and know that the cartels think that's a great way to move narcotics and money. And as a result, this unit works in cooperation with Homeland Security investigations at the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, and there have been significant seizures that have been made there.
What do you want civilians to know about the work that you're doing?
One pill kills.
Yes, he said it best, one pill kills, is that we know that this is a clear and present threat to our children, and it's 18 to 45. The highest risk of death, of course, right now is fentanyl. So one pill kills. We want parents to invade their children's social media. We want them to invade their phones and to know who they're talking to and what's coming to their house, because every one of us have dealt with that, 15-year-old that thought it was something else, and his life is gone. It is a tragedy, but one pill and it kills.
Listen, it also bears mentioning that all of these sheriffs here, we've all been to these scenes where a youngster is sitting on the couch dead with a slice of pizza on their chest. I've talked to the parents of a 16-year-old girl, beautiful young girl, who was a soccer player, and she strained her back and she got a pill from a friend. A Percocet is what she thought was going to help her back. And she went home and ate dinner. She told her parents she was going to go up and do her homework. And her mom found her later in the same clothes, stretched across the bed, and she was dead from a fatal fentanyl poisoning. So how does that happen? Well, what happens is the cartels, they get these precursor chemicals, they cook up a batch of fentanyl, and then they impregnate prescription pills that look like Adderall and Percocet, and imagine what you will, but they impregnate these pills with these pill presses, and then they're sold throughout these communities. Every community in the United States, because the cartel is in absolutely every city, town, village in the United States. That's how prolific that they are, and their distribution network is. And so we have this casual transference of prescription medication thing that we do in the United States, right? I got a headache. Oh, well, here, take this pill. These kinds of things. Everybody in this room has probably done that at some point in their life. And that's what the cartels are depending on. This sheriff here, Sheriff Wayburn, had one of the most interesting interviews ever that was done of a cartel soldier who admitted that their business strategy is to raise the addiction level of Americans. And if they kill a bunch of them in the process, that's just the cost of doing business. These are unbelievably evil people. Which leads me to say, at some point, the United States government is going to have to take the cartels in hand. They are so totally out of control. They no longer fear American law enforcement, federal, state, or local. They have absolutely no fear whatsoever for law enforcement. And they don't fear the federal government. And at some point, given the amount of control that they have across this country, and given the number of people that they're killing, at some point the United States government's going to have to get some guts and stand up and make the right tough choices and deal with that threat to our national security and certainly to our public safety in Texas and elsewhere.
I think you're also mentioning that y'all sent agents to Idaho. What is the scope? What is y'all's plans for expansion?
We are at the call of America's sheriffs. If they call, we will try to help them and try to show them how this was set up and show our success and what it's done for the community.
Sheriff, could I add some to that last question?
Sure.
You asked what we would want the community to know. I think one of the sheriffs touched on it. This isn't an issue that's unique to one demographic, one conservative, liberal, progressive, wherever you fall. This is a community issue. The proliferation of these narcotics and these crimes, the trafficking, sex trafficking, labor trafficking, they do not discriminate. They don't care if you have an R in front of your political beliefs, a D, an I. It doesn't matter if you are male, female, big, little. It's indiscriminate. So what I would suggest to anybody within the community is we need to be vigilant together because it's coming after all of us. It's heartbreaking to work a fentanyl death from a young lady you watched grow up and go through school with your own children. That is heartbreaking. I'm not a small person, but that one hurt. It's in our communities. It doesn't matter all this other stuff on the periphery, you know, our political beliefs, where we go to church, what we like to wear, what kind of music we like to listen to. This is a community-wide, nationwide issue. And so we have to be vigilant together and get past some of that stuff that really, in comparison, isn't as relevant as the problem itself and addressing it.
You might mention that we're starting to message people.
Yesterday in Collin County, at the same time that we had some similar stuff going on, is they made an arrest of a drug pusher who had delivered fentanyl and someone had died, and he is now in the Collin County Jail charged with poison. That's happened in our county, and it's starting to happen all across the state of Texas. So the message I think that we would like to send, besides the one pill would kill, and continue to do it, is to the United States government. Come and get a handle on the border. Stop the cartel. That's the message to them. To Governor Abbott and his team, stay the course. Stay the course. We're getting at it. To our community, we're going to do everything we can to keep you safe. For the cartel people that we are battling, be careful, because we're going to shoot back, and we're going to shoot back a lot, and we're not going to put up with that threat in our community. And that threat goes on. You know, as you know, law enforcement carry weapons. In Tarrant County, we've used Narcan so much, I've gone to taking it out of the package, and I carry it in my front pocket. Because that's how peripheral this stuff is, how much it goes on. And so it's, as we said earlier, very clear and present danger to all of our families. But this team has seen a decrease because this team has made it hard to come to these counties. And they know if they come to Smith County or Tarrant County or Collin County or Johnson or Wise County, they're going to fade heat because we're waiting on them. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen? Y'all been so good to us. Thank you. And it's been a good afternoon. And like I said at the beginning, this could be a good Hollywood movie. And I think you got Clint Eastwood and Chuck Norris right here, so we can take off. Thank y'all.